These two arrests involve agents in different areas, one in southeastern Arizona, the other one working in California, involved in some of the border operations in Los Angeles over the past month. Now, the LA District Attorney's Office says that arrest happened on July 7. Detectives say Border Patrol agent Isaiah Hodgson went into the women's restroom at a restaurant and approached a female patron. According to the report, the women noticed a handgun on his waist and alerted staff. Police say Hodgson was uncooperative and got physical with an officer during his arrest. This arrest and the one in southeastern Arizona have fueled critics' concerns about the upcoming effort to vet and hire 3,000 new agents to ramp up immigration enforcement. Now, the ACLU is criticizing the move, citing incidents that occurred during the George Bush administration when Border Patrol doubled in size.
The direct result of that was a sharp increase in the number of cases where Border Patrol agents were misbehaving in one way or another, were committing crimes themselves, were getting involved with organized crime. And the clear reason why this happened is because they lowered the standards in order to achieve the numbers that they were trying to achieve.
Now, the agent in southeastern Arizona faces 17 counts, including child sex trafficking. A DHS spokesperson confirmed the matter in Los Angeles is under investigation. He faces 9 charges, including battery against a police officer and carrying a loaded firearm in public. Now, the Department of Homeland Security says they employ a rigorous hiring process for Border Patrol agents that includes a background check and drug testing. Reporting live in Yuma, Alexandra Rangel, Arizona's Family.